Tonight, you are going to lose your mind, not metaphorically. Sometime in the next few hours, your brain is going to shut down your ability to move, paralyze your muscles from the neck down, and start generating fully immersive hallucinations that you will experience as completely real. Your heart rate will spike. Your eyes will dart behind closed lids. You will see people who are not there, visit places that do not exist, feel terror or desire or grief with no external cause. And when it is over, you will forget almost all of it. You call this sleeping. You do it every night without question. But here is the thing. So did they. Every Homo sapiens who ever napped a stone blade, tracked a wounded animal across open savanna, or pressed a pigment-stained hand against a cave wall did exactly what you are going to do tonight. They lay down, their bodies went still, and their brains built worlds that were not real. The question nobody asks is what those worlds looked like. What did a person dream about 70,000 years ago? In a world with no buildings, no writing, no artificial light. When every waking hour was spent scanning for predators, reading landscapes for food and water, and keeping a fire alive through a 12-hour night, what happened when the brain finally let go? The answer is stranger, and more important than most people realize. Because dreaming was not some harmless byproduct of sleep. It may have been one of the most powerful cognitive tools ancient humans ever had. And there is real evidence from neuroscience, from archaeology, from cross-cultural anthropology, that dreaming shaped the way they survived, the way they made decisions, and possibly the way they invented religion itself. Here is the first thing most people get wrong about dreams. They assume dreaming is a uniquely human experience, something that comes packaged with our oversized neocortex and our complicated emotional lives. It is not. Dreaming is ancient, far older than our species. Every mammal that has been studied in a sleep laboratory shows clear signs of rapid eye movement sleep, REM sleep, the sleep phase where dreaming is most vivid and most frequent. Rats dream, dogs dream, cats dream. The platypus, one of the most evolutionarily primitive mammals alive, spends roughly 8 hours a day in REM sleep, more than almost any other species on record. When researchers at MIT, led by neuroscientist Matthew Wilson, recorded neural activity in rats during REM sleep in 2001, they found something remarkable. The rats were replaying the exact neural firing patterns from mazes they had navigated earlier that day. Not similar patterns, the same patterns, in the same sequence, running at the same speed. The rats were dreaming about the maze. They were running it again in their sleep. REM sleep has been traced back at least 140 million years in the mammalian lineage. That means dreaming, or something functionally indistinguishable from it, predates the extinction of the dinosaurs by tens of millions of years. By the time Homo sapiens appeared roughly 300,000 years ago, the neural machinery for dreaming was already deeply embedded. It was not something our species invented. It was something we inherited, and then, almost certainly, put to extraordinary use. And here is where the story gets genuinely interesting. In 2000, the Finnish cognitive neuroscientist Antti Revonsuo at the University of Turku published what has become one of the most influential theories of dreaming in modern sleep science. He called it the threat simulation theory. The idea is elegant but radical. Dreaming did not evolve as random neural noise. It did not evolve as emotional housekeeping or wish fulfillment. It evolved as a biological rehearsal system for dangerous situations. Revonsuo analyzed thousands of dream reports from modern humans across multiple cultures and found a pattern that is difficult to explain away. Dreams are not random. They are disproportionately threatening. Across every population studied, the most common dream content involves being chased, being attacked, encountering aggressive animals, falling from a height, losing your way in unfamiliar territory, or facing a situation where something has gone catastrophically wrong. Pleasant dreams where everything is fine are statistically uncommon. The dreaming brain does not simulate paradise. It simulates problems. Think about what this actually means for a Homo sapiens living in the Middle Paleolithic. A person sleeping on the ground in East Africa 100,000 years ago faced real, nightly, non-negotiable threats. Leopards, which are nocturnal ambush predators that specifically target sleeping primates. Hyenas, which traveled in clans and could drag a sleeping person from the edge of a group. Venomous snakes, scorpions, rival groups, sudden weather. The threat simulation theory suggests that their dreams were doing something critical, running those exact scenarios. Rehearsing pursuit, evasion, confrontation, escape, night after night, so that when the real threat materialized during waking hours, the brain had already practiced a response. This is not metaphor. It is neurological. During REM sleep, the amygdala, the brain's primary threat detection center, is significantly more active than it is during most waking states. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for rational evaluation and the ability to recognize that something is not real, is largely offline. The result is a brain that generates a terrifying scenario and responds to it with full emotional and physiological intensity. Your heart pounds. Your breathing accelerates. Your muscles would contract if they were not temporarily paralyzed by a mechanism called rematonia. The body reacts to the dream as though it is happening. For an ancient human, that nightly rehearsal could mean the difference between freezing when a predator charged and reacting instantly without conscious deliberation. The ones who dreamed about threats were better prepared for threats. Natural selection did not just preserve dreaming, it sharpened it into a survival instrument. But the threat simulator is only part of the story, because ancient humans were not just surviving predators, they were surviving each other. In 2012, the evolutionary psychologist Ravenswoe expanded his original theory in collaboration with Cachiavelli to include what they called the social simulation theory. Their analysis of large dream databases showed that an enormous proportion of dream content is not about physical danger at all. It is about social situations, conflict with group members, alliances forming and dissolving, status challenges, sexual encounters, betrayal, cooperation, reconciliation. The dreaming brain, it turns out, is rehearsing social scenarios with the same intensity it rehearses predator encounters. For a species whose survival depended entirely on group cohesion, this is not trivial. In a band of 25 to 30 people living in close contact, with no legal system, no formal hierarchy, and no ability to simply leave and start over in a new city, navigating social dynamics was a matter of life and death. Being expelled from the group was a death sentence. Misreading an alliance could cost you access to food, to mates, to protection. The dreaming brain was running those simulations every night, testing outcomes, rehearsing responses, preparing for conflicts that had not happened yet but very well might. Now here is where this connects to something most people have never considered about ancient dreaming. Not just what they dreamed, but what they did with their dreams after they woke up. Roger Ekirch, the historian at Virginia Tech whose decades of research reshaped how we understand pre-industrial sleep, documented something critical about the period between first sleep and second sleep. That wakeful interval in the middle of the night, sometimes lasting 30 minutes to an hour, was consistently described across centuries of historical records as the time when dreams were most vivid and most easily remembered. The neurochemistry explains why. When you wake directly out of a REM cycle, before the brain has time to transition through lighter non-REM stages, the neurochemical environment still favors dream recall. Begin rising the moment you wake. If the transition is sharp, the dream content is still accessible. If you drift slowly through lighter sleep, it is gone. In a segmented sleep pattern, which is almost certainly how humans slept for the vast majority of our existence as a species, that middle-of-the-night waking consistently intersects with peak REM activity. Ancient humans were not just dreaming, they were waking up with their dreams intact, and they were waking up next to other people. Sleep in the Paleolithic was communal. Groups of 15 to 30 people sleeping together in close physical contact around a maintained fire, not in separate rooms, not in separate beds, together. And when one person woke in the night with a dream still vivid, the people around them were there to hear it. Polly Wiesner, the anthropologist at the University of Utah, who spent years studying the Jew Hoanzi San people of the Kalahari, recorded something striking about nighttime social behavior. A significant portion of conversation during nighttime waking periods involved the sharing and interpretation of dreams. This was not idle chatter. Dreams were treated as meaningful information about the real world. A dream about a distant waterhole might influence where the group traveled the next day. A dream about a dead relative might trigger specific ritual behavior. A dream about an animal might reshape a hunting strategy. Dreams were not private hallucinations locked inside a single skull. They were shared data, spoken aloud, interpreted collectively, and folded into group decision-making. And this changes the entire picture of what ancient dreaming actually was. Because once dreams are communal, once they are spoken and discussed and acted upon, they stop being individual neurological events. They become a form of culture. Let us talk about the walls of Chauvet Cave, because this is where dreaming connects to something you can actually see. Chauvet Cave in the Ardèche region of southern France contains some of the oldest known cave art in the world, dating to roughly 36,000 years ago. The paintings are astonishing. Lions, horses, woolly rhinoceroses, aurochs, rendered with a fluency and observational precision that stunned researchers when the cave was discovered in 1994. But among the naturalistic animal images, there are other figures that do not exist in nature. Therianthropes, composite beings that are half human and half animal, a figure with a human lower body and a bison upper body, shapes that seem to shift between species, caught mid-transformation. These hybrid beings appear not just at Chauvet but across Paleolithic art sites, spanning tens of thousands of years and multiple continents. The Lion Man of Hohenstein-Stadel, a 40,000-year-old ivory sculpture recovered from a cave in the Swabian Jura region of Germany in 1939, depicts a figure with a human body and the head of a European cave lion. It is one of the oldest figurative sculptures ever found on Earth. Where did these images come from? What experience could produce the idea of a being that is simultaneously human and animal? The South African archaeologist David Lewis Williams, in his landmark 2002 work, The Mind in the Cave, argued that much of Upper Paleolithic cave art was connected to altered states of consciousness, and the most universally accessible altered state available to every human who has ever lived, one that requires no plant, no ritual, no technique, is dreaming. Cross-cultural dream research shows that therianthropic transformation, the experience of becoming an animal or merging with one, is among the most commonly reported dream themes across all human populations. It appears in cultures that have had no contact with each other. It appears to be a default output of the dreaming brain, likely rooted in the fact that the brain regions responsible for body schema and proprioception become highly plastic during REM sleep. The boundary between self and not self dissolves. You stop knowing where your body ends. A person dreaming 40,000 years ago did not have a concept of dreaming the way you do. They had no neuroscience framework that cleanly separated subjective hallucination from external reality. When they closed their eyes and became a lion, when they ran through the dark on four legs, when they looked at their hands and saw claws, that experience carried the same weight as anything that happened while their eyes were open, possibly more weight, because the emotional intensity of REM sleep can exceed most waking experience. And then they woke, in the dark, with the dream still alive in their body, and they told someone. This is where dreams may have become something larger than a rehearsal tool. The 19th century British anthropologist Edward Tylor proposed in his 1871 work Primitive Culture that the origin of animism, the belief that animals, rivers, trees, and natural forces possess spirits or souls, could be traced directly to the universal experience of dreaming about the dead. His reasoning was straightforward. If you dream about your grandmother who died last winter, and she speaks to you, and you feel her presence, and you have no cognitive framework for understanding that this experience was generated internally by your own sleeping brain, then the simplest available conclusion is that she still exists. She visited you. She is real, but in a form you cannot touch while awake. Modern cognitive scientists like Pascal Boyer and the evolutionary psychologist Jesse Bering have refined Tylor's argument with contemporary evidence, but the core mechanism has held up remarkably well. The human brain generates experiences during sleep that it cannot distinguish from external reality. Those experiences consistently feature dead people, animal transformations, impossible events, and encounters with entities that do not exist in the waking world. For ancient humans who shared these experiences communally during the segmented sleep-watch period, those spoken dreams were not fiction. They were eyewitness testimony about an invisible world. Multiple people in the same group, across multiple nights, reporting similar encounters, similar transformations, similar visitations. Those patterns were not coincidence to them. They were confirmation, and confirmation becomes belief, and belief becomes religion. In 2017, the neuroscientist Francesca Ciclari and her team at the University of Lausanne published a study in the journal Nature Neuroscience that identified the specific neural signature of dreaming. Using high-density electroencephalography, they showed that dreaming correlates with a distinct pattern of activity in what they called the posterior cortical hot zone, a region that includes areas responsible for visual processing, spatial reasoning, and face recognition. When this zone activates during sleep, you dream. When it does not, your sleep is dreamless. Here is what makes this relevant. The posterior cortical hot zone is not part of the prefrontal cortex, the brain region that expanded most dramatically during recent human cognitive evolution. It sits in older cortical architecture. The neural hardware for dreaming was not a late upgrade. It was there from the start. A Homo sapiens 150,000 years ago had the same dreaming machinery firing in the same brain regions as you will tonight, but the raw material was different. And this is the part that most discussions of ancient dreaming miss entirely. The dreaming brain does not create from nothing. It recombines, distorts, and reconfigures material drawn from recent and stored memory. This is well established in sleep science. The content of your dreams is built from the content of your life. and the content of an ancient human's life was radically, fundamentally different from yours. A person who spent their waking hours tracking animals across open terrain, reading broken vegetation and disturbed soil, listening for the alarm calls of oxpeckers, watching cloud formations for approaching storms, scanning the edges of tree lines for the silhouette of a predator, that person's brain was saturated with sensory data of a kind and density that no modern human experiences. Their dreams were not abstract. They were not populated with office buildings and traffic and text messages. They were full of animals, weather, firelight, faces of the 20 or 30 people who constituted their entire social universe, sounds of the bush at night, the smell of rain approaching. The threat simulator ran on predator encounters that were real. The social simulator ran on relationships where a single misjudgment could mean exile and death. The spatial memory system replayed landscapes they had walked through, water sources they had located, routes they had memorized. Their dreams were built from a world that was denser, more immediate, more dangerous, and more sensorially rich than anything most modern humans will ever encounter. And every morning, or every wakeful midnight, those dreams were spoken, heard, integrated, acted upon. Tonight, when your eyes close and your body goes still, the same posterior cortical hot zone will activate. The same amygdala-driven threat simulations will run. You will dream about being chased, about people you have not spoken to in years, standing in rooms they have never visited, about impossible things that feel undeniably real. And when you wake up, you will almost certainly reach for your phone, shake it off, and forget. But for 300,000 years, nobody forgot. They could not afford to. They woke in the dark, next to people they had known since birth, with the dream still raw and present. And they spoke it into the world. Those spoken dreams became stories. Those stories became beliefs. Those beliefs became the first invisible architecture of every culture, every religion, every mythology that humans have ever built. You are going to dream tonight. You have no choice. The machinery is older than your species. And the thing that will happen inside your skull in a few hours is the same thing that happened inside the skull of every human who ever lived. The only difference is that they treated it as the most important thing that happened to them all day. And there is a growing body of evidence that they may have been right.